Chapter 1, When the Night Quieted Down. There was a night, much like any other night, when the world had finally begun to soften. The street outside had grown quiet. Cars stopped passing the window. The neighbor's television went silent. Even the refrigerator hum in the kitchen seemed to calm down, becoming a low, steady murmur in the background. In a small bedroom, at the very end of a hallway, a child lay in bed, resting on a soft pillow. The blanket was pulled up under their chin, heavy enough to feel safe, but light enough to breathe. On a little table beside the bed, a lamp glowed with a warm, golden light, like a tiny sun trying its best to stay awake. The child's eyes were half closed. It had been a long day of moving, thinking, talking, and listening. All the little things that happened during the day, questions, conversations, moments of excitement, and moments of worry, now floated around in the child's mind, like drifting leaves on a quiet pond. They turned over once. Then again. The sheets made that soft rustling sound that only bed sheets make. Familiar. Gentle. Almost like a quiet wave washing over the shore. On the wall, shadows from the curtains moved just a little with the breeze from the slightly open window. Outside, the sky was dark and wide, and the moon was somewhere up there, watching over the houses, the roofs, the trees, and the sleeping streets. The child listened. The more they listened, the more they heard how still everything was. A dog barked once in the distance. Then nothing. Another moment passed. And then, the faintest sound. So soft it almost did not sound like anything at first. It was a humming. A low, steady, humming sound, like a far-off engine, like something rolling slowly along, far beneath the ground or far above the clouds. It was not loud. It was not frightening. It felt steady. Like something that had been traveling for a very long time and knew exactly where it was going. The child opened their eyes a little wider and stared at the ceiling. The humming grew just a bit stronger. Not loud enough to disturb. Just enough to be noticed. Then, something even more unusual happened. A single speck of light floated down from the ceiling. Not from the lamp. Not from the window. It appeared from nowhere, like a tiny star that had slipped through a crack in the night. It drifted down slowly, swirling in a lazy spiral, and landed at the foot of the bed. Then another speck appeared. And another. Soon, a handful of golden grains of light floated gently over the floor, glowing softly like warm dust in the late afternoon sun. The child pushed the blanket down a little and sat up, watching. One of the glowing grains drifted across the floor and touched the wall. The wall shimmered. Faint lines appeared, like chalk drawing itself on a blackboard. At first, the lines didn't look like anything at all. They were just light, curving here and there, turning a corner, crossing over each other. But as more lines formed, the child could see them becoming something clear. They were rails. Two shining rails, made of gold dust and moonlight, running right across the bedroom wall. Between them, silver sleepers formed, one after another, like little steps. A railway track, was quietly building itself, right there, in the soft glow of the room. The humming sound grew a little deeper, a little stronger, but still calm. Still steady. Comforting, somehow. The child slid one foot, then the other, out from under the blanket, their bare feet touching the floor. The floor felt cool and safe. They stood up and walked slowly toward the wall. As they did, the rails seemed to grow, gently pushing backward, as if the wall were stretching away, making space. The room lengthened, widened, opened, as if it were breathing out and making room for something new. And then the child saw it. Far down the golden track, in what used to be the solid wall and was now more like a long, glowing tunnel of night sky, a light appeared. A small light at first, like a distant star. Then two lights. Then 3. They moved closer, very slowly. A shape followed the lights, dark against the soft shimmer of the tunnel. As it approached, the child could see the outline of a locomotive, round, gentle, not sharp, not harsh. It rolled along the golden rails with no sparks, no smoke, only that low, steady hum. The engine was deep blue, like the night sky just before dawn. Its edges were lined with soft gold. Its windows glowed with warm amber light. It looked like a train that belonged to the night. A train that did not need noise or rush. A train that knew how to be quiet. There were carriages behind it, many of them, each one slightly different, all in quiet shades of blue, violet, and soft gray. Their windows glowed too, like tiny lanterns drifting along behind the engine. The train slowed down as it reached the child's room. The humming softened. The engine came to a stop just at the edge of the bedroom, where the floor met the expanding tunnel. A small platform of light unfolded itself from the track, a gentle, glowing step reaching out toward the child. And there, standing on that step, was someone the child had never seen but somehow felt they already knew. He was tall, but not too tall. He wore a long coat that flowed behind him like a trail of fine dust. The coat changed color very softly as he moved, gold, silver, soft pearl. He had hair the color of faded sunlight on old pages, and eyes that held quiet, easy kindness. In one hand, he held a lantern. The lantern's light did not flicker, it pulsed very gently, like a calm heartbeat. Inside the lantern, instead of a flame, there swirled a slow, golden dust. His other hand was empty, open, relaxed. When he spoke, his voice sounded like a distant lullaby drifting in through an open window. "Good evening," he said quietly. "You look just tired enough for a journey." The child did not feel afraid. They felt the way you feel when you see a soft chair after a long day. The way you feel when a blanket is laid gently over your shoulders. They nodded, slowly, sleepily. "Who are you?" they asked, their voice barely above a whisper. "I am the Sandman," he answered. "And this is my sleep train." He looked at the child's eyes, saw all the leftover thoughts from the day, all the small worries, all the unfinished feelings. "You don't have to carry all of that while you sleep," he said gently. "Come aboard. I'll take you somewhere safe for a while." The child glanced back at their bed. It was still there. The pillow. The blanket. The lamp still glowing softly. But the room was stretched now, open like a page in a book, and at the edge of that familiar space, the train waited. The child stepped forward. Their feet touched the glowing step. It felt solid, but soft, like standing on very firm clouds. The Sandman stepped aside to make room. "Welcome," he said. The child walked onto the train. The lantern in his hand glowed a little brighter for just a moment, as if pleased. Behind them, the room with the bed and the lamp grew slightly dimmer, a little farther away, but still there, like a bookmark in a story. The door of the carriage slid closed with the quietest of sighs. And the Sandman's sleep train began to move. Chapter 2, Along the Golden Rails. Inside the train, the light was gentle and warm. The child stood just inside the doorway, their bare feet touching a floor that felt like polished wood and soft carpet at the same time. The air smelled faintly of something calm and familiar, maybe a little like clean sheets, a little like warm milk, a little like the pages of a well-loved book. Soft lanterns hung from the ceiling along the corridor, each one glowing with the same steady golden dust that swirled in the Sandman's lantern. "Come," the Sandman said quietly. "Let's find you a place to rest while we travel." They walked down the corridor together. The train moved smoothly, no jolts, no sudden shaking. The child could feel it gliding along the golden rails, but it felt more like floating than riding. They passed windows, and through them the child could see that they were no longer in the bedroom, no longer in the house, no longer in the street or the town. Outside, the world had become a wide, slow-moving sea of stars. Not just above them, but all around. The rails hung in that starry space, stretching ahead in pale lines, fading into the distance. Some of the stars outside were bright and sharp. Others were soft and blurred, like memories that had begun to turn into dreams. Here and there, the child could see shapes drifting by, small islands of light, floating patches of mist, quiet, distant silhouettes of things that might once have been thoughts, or wishes, or half-remembered places. The Sandman walked at an easy pace, his coat trailing behind him. He glanced back over his shoulder at the child and gave a small, reassuring smile. "This is the space between waking and sleeping," he said. "Most people pass through it without noticing. You, tonight, are simply taking the scenic route." They came to a carriage that looked a little different from the others. The door was open, and inside, the child could see soft seats, padded benches, and wide windows. A tiny figure bounced out to greet them. It was about the size of a fist, round and softly glowing, like a small puff of golden cloud with two little dots for eyes. It squeaked, not with sound exactly, but with a tiny pulse of light. "This is one of the conductor's sparks," the Sandman explained. "They keep the train in order. They like having passengers." The little spark zipped in a small circle around the child, leaving a faint trail of light, then settled just above the child's shoulder, as if it had chosen them as its favorite for the night. The child smiled, feeling oddly honored. The tiny spark glowed a little brighter, as if smiling back. "Let's sit," the Sandman said gently. They stepped into the carriage and chose a seat by the window. The seat was wide and soft, with a back high enough to lean into. As soon as the child sat down, it seemed to adjust itself around them, supporting their back, shoulders, and neck without pressing too hard. The Sandman sat across from them, still holding his lantern loosely in one hand. He set it down on a little table between them. The golden dust inside swirled lazily, like someone about to fall asleep but not quite ready yet. The train hummed softly as it moved along. Outside, the stars slowly drifted by. "What is this train for?" the child asked quietly, eyes fixed on the window. The Sandman rested his elbows on his knees, hands loosely folded. "This train is for carrying what you don't need to hold by yourself," he said. "Little worries. Heavy thoughts. Feelings that haven't quite found their place yet. We give them some room, some space, to settle, while you rest. And the worlds we pass through," he added, "are made from bits and pieces of all the dreams people have ever had. Some are very old. Some are brand new." The child watched as a cluster of pale, floating shapes drifted by the window. They looked like small houses made of light, slowly turning like lanterns in the dark. "Do many people ride this train?" the child asked. "More than you would think," the Sandman replied. "Fewer than you would expect. Enough to keep me busy. But tonight," he added with a soft smile, "it is mostly just you, and a few others, each in their own carriage, each on their own quiet journey." The child leaned their head back against the seat. Tiredness was seeping into their muscles now, like warm water filling a bath. The conductor's spark floated down and settled on the child's shoulder again, its tiny light pulsing in slow time with the hum of the train. "Where are we going first?" the child murmured. "To a place made from memories," said the Sandman. "Not memories you have to think hard about. Just the ones that like to drift in the background when you are almost asleep." The train's humming deepened a little as it changed its course very slightly, following a curve in the invisible rails. Outside, the stars gathered, clustering together until they almost formed fields. The Sandman lifted his lantern, gave it the softest of shakes. Golden dust rose inside, spun, and settled. "Just relax," he said. "You don't have to do anything. The train knows the way." The child closed their eyes for a moment. They could feel the movement, steady and gentle. They could hear the hum, constant and low. They could sense the presence of the Sandman, calm and patient, and the conductor's spark at their shoulder, warm and light. When they opened their eyes again, the stars had changed. They were no longer endless points in the dark. They had gathered themselves into something else entirely. Ahead, the rails led towards a wide, glowing plain. Soft shapes swayed there, moving in a quiet wind that made no sound. The Sandman nodded toward the window. "Welcome," he said softly, "to the Memory Meadows." Chapter 3, Memory Meadows. The train slowed to an easy glide, then to a barely moving crawl, and finally to a smooth, silent stop. Outside the window, the child could see a vast meadow spreading out in every direction. The ground was covered in low, gentle grasses that glowed with a faint, pale light. They moved slowly, as if someone were brushing a hand over the surface of a very calm lake. The air above the meadow was full of tiny floating lights. They drifted like fireflies, slow and aimless, turning here and there. They were not bright. They were soft and quiet, like old thoughts that no longer needed attention, only a place to exist. The door of the carriage slid open by itself. The conductor's spark flickered, then floated toward the opening, waiting. "Come," the Sandman said. "We will not stay long, but it is peaceful here." The child stood up. Their legs felt a little heavy, but not in a bad way. More in the way that legs feel when they are very relaxed. They stepped out onto the meadow. The grass felt cool and springy under their feet. Not wet, not dry. Just pleasant. Every step made the faintest shimmer of light spread outward in a small circle, then fade again. The air smelled like many small, familiar things, all gently mixed together. A little like warm toast. A little like rain on pavement. A little like sun on a schoolyard, or crayons, or pages in a book. Not any one thing clearly. Just memories of days that had already happened. "What is this place exactly?" the child asked. The Sandman walked beside them, his steps making no sound at all. "These are forgotten corners of your own days," he said. "Moments that did not need to be remembered strongly, but that still wanted a soft place to rest." He pointed toward a small cluster of lights drifting close to the ground. "Look there," he murmured. The child watched. One of the lights swelled, just a little, like someone taking a slow, deep breath. Within it, the child saw something faint. The shape of a playground. A red swing moving back and forth. Shoes scuffing in sand. A laugh. A voice calling their name. Then the light gently shrank, returning to its original size, and bobbed away. "You don't have to think about it," the Sandman said. "It knows what it is. It is enough." They walked on. A different cluster of lights hovered near a small hill. One of them glowed a bit warmer than the others. Inside it, the child saw a hand offering a mug of hot chocolate on a cold day. Another light showed a favorite blanket being spread over tired shoulders. Another showed a window with raindrops racing each other down the glass. Every time they looked, another little piece would quietly show itself, then soften again. "So many things," the child whispered. "Most of your days never disappear," the Sandman replied. "They simply settle. They become part of the gentle background. When your mind is ready to rest, places like this hold them for you." They walked in silence for a while. The meadow stretched on, but there was no need to cross at all. Just being there was enough. The conductor's spark floated ahead, touching down on a tall blade of glowing grass, making it bend and spring back slowly. The child breathed slowly, in and out. The air seemed to move with them, like the entire place was breathing along. "There is something else here too," the Sandman said softly. Sometimes, a worry tries to hide in the meadows. We gently invite it to rest instead. He pointed with his lantern toward a slightly dimmer patch in the distance. There, a small cluster of lights flickered a little too quickly. They trembled, not in fear exactly, but in discomfort, as if they were trying to stay awake when they wanted to sleep. The child took a few steps toward them. As they approached, one of the shimmering points of light swelled just enough for the child to glimpse what was inside. It was themselves, sitting at a desk, frowning at a paper. A question they didn't understand. A feeling of not knowing what to do. A tiny twist of worry in their chest. The child exhaled slowly. "Oh," they said quietly. "That." The Sandman came closer, his lantern casting a warm glow. "This is what you were carrying when you lay down," he said gently. "It tried to follow you here. It isn't sure it can rest." The child looked at the light, watched their own confused little face inside it. Then, as if talking to someone small and frightened, they whispered, "It's okay. Not everything has to be solved tonight. You can sleep too." The light trembled once, then softly steadied. The little image inside faded into a warm, formless glow. The Sandman dipped a finger into the lantern and flicked a tiny droplet of dream dust toward the cluster. It landed in the middle and spread like a slow, golden ripple. The whole patch of lights calmed. Their flickering settled into the same quiet pulse as the rest of the meadow. "See," he said. "Sometimes, you do not have to push worry away. You can just give it permission to rest. It will still be there when you wake, but lighter, smaller, easier to carry." The child nodded, feeling a weight inside their chest loosen, like a knot gently untangling. They walked a little more, watching as other memories and small worries glowed softly, not asking for anything, only existing. After a while, the Sandman touched the child's shoulder. "That is enough for tonight," he said gently. "The train does not wait for long in any one place. Come." Together, they walked back toward where the train stood on its golden rails. It was waiting just as they had left it, lanterns glowing, wheels still. The conductor's spark zipped ahead and hovered at the open door. The child looked back once at the meadow. The grasses swayed. The lights drifted. Nothing shouted. Nothing chased. Everything was quiet. They stepped back onto the train. The door closed behind them with that same quiet sigh. The Sandman picked up his lantern, and the child returned to their seat by the window. The train began to move, slowly at first, then more smoothly, returning once again to the star-filled space between places. The Memory Meadows slowly slid away behind them, like a page being turned. The child leaned their head against the seat back, eyelids heavier now. "Where to next?" they asked, voice soft and drowsy. The Sandman smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "Somewhere sound likes to sleep," he said. "A place of echoes and gentle humming. The Lullaby Caverns." Chapter 4, The Lullaby Caverns. The stars outside the window rearranged themselves once more. The rails curved, dipped, and rose again. The child could feel each slow change, not as movement exactly, but as a shift in the mood of the air. The hum of the train deepened, then lightened, like a note being held and then gently changed. Soon, the darkness outside the carriage windows was no longer filled with stars. Instead, faint shapes emerged. Tall, arching shadows. Soft curves. Wide, rounded spaces. The golden rails led into what looked like the mouth of a great cave. The cave's entrance glowed with a soft blue light, like moonlight filtered through water. As the train rolled closer, the child heard something new, another sound beneath the hum of the engine. It was a tone. Very low at first, almost not there. Then another tone, a little higher. Then another, and another, until slowly, they formed a chord. Then a simple, repeating melody. It wasn't a song with words. It was just sound. Sound that knew how to be kind. The train slipped quietly into the cave and slowed to a warm, humming halt. When the door opened, cool, gentle air flowed into the carriage. It carried with it the soft echo of many voices, none distinct, all blending together into a calm lullaby. The Sandman stood and gestured toward the doorway. "This is where forgotten songs and comforting sounds rest," he said. "If you listen, you might find some you recognize." The child stepped out. Inside, the cavern was enormous but not frightening. The walls arched high overhead, smooth and glistening like polished stone. Soft, glowing veins of light ran along the ceiling and down the walls, like rivers of gentle color, blue, violet, pale green. The floor was flat and easy to walk on. Every few steps, their footfalls echoed, but the echo was never sharp. It was soft and rounded, like the end of a yawn. From deeper within the cavern came the sound of humming. It rose and fell, weaving around itself in slow patterns. The child and the Sandman walked toward it. The conductor's spark bobbed ahead lightly, pulsing in time with the music. As they went deeper, the child noticed shapes along the walls. Tiny openings. Soft hollows. From each one, a different little thread of sound escaped. Some were very simple, a single, sustained note. Others were gentle patterns of rising and falling tones. None were loud. None were urgent. "These are the resting places of sounds that once comforted someone," the Sandman explained. He pointed to a small, glowing hollow low on the wall. Inside it, the child heard the soft sound of a kettle just beginning to boil, quiet bubbling, not yet a whistle. A memory of waiting in a warm kitchen. Another hollow held the sound of light rain on a roof, the kind that goes on and on without thunder, tapping a steady rhythm. Another carried the thrum of a train on very far-off tracks, a slow, repetitive pattern like a heart in the distance. The child walked slowly, listening. Every sound they heard seemed to slip under their skin, reassuring something quiet inside. "What about lullabies?" the child asked softly. The Sandman nodded toward a wider cavern branch. They followed it and soon heard it clearly. From that part of the caverns, longer, flowing melodies emerged. Tuneless humming. Fragments of songs. Voices that belonged to no single person anymore, just to the idea of comfort. The child heard something they recognized without quite knowing why, the rise and fall of a tune someone might hum while tucking in a blanket, or smoothing a pillow, or brushing hair from a forehead. It didn't have words. It didn't need them. "Each lullaby that is sung with care leaves a gentle trace here," the Sandman said. "Even when the singer forgets. Even when the listener grows. The comfort stays." They walked along until the child slowed beside one particular opening. From this hollow came a very faint, quiet song. It was slightly uneven, like someone humming softly while tired, while doing something gently with their hands. The child felt a tug in their chest. "Is that mine?" they asked, though they weren't sure what they meant. "Perhaps," the Sandman replied. "It might be someone humming in the kitchen when you were small. Or the rhythm of a car ride that soothed you once. You don't have to remember exactly. Your body remembers the feeling." The child stood there for a while, listening. The melody was simple. 4 or 5 notes, repeating. But each time it repeated, the way it was sung changed just a little, as if shaped by breath, by mood, by simple being. After a while, the child sighed gently, almost in time with the tune. Their shoulders dropped a little more. Their jaw eased. The Sandman watched, patient. "You don't always need words to be calmed," he said softly. "Sometimes, just the shape of sound is enough." A little further on, they came to a pool of still water. Its surface reflected the faint lights in the ceiling, so it looked like a quiet lake filled with slow stars. The humming here seemed to gather and settle, as if the very air around the pool wanted to be gentle. "Would you like to leave any sound here?" the Sandman asked. A sigh, perhaps. Or a worry turned into a simple note. "We can let it rest with the others." The child thought about that. They closed their eyes and remembered the knot in their chest from earlier, the one from the desk and the difficult question on the paper. But now it felt smaller, softer, as if the Memory Meadows had already taken some of its weight. They took a breath. Then, on the out-breath, they let out a quiet, wordless hum. Just one simple sound, rising a little and then falling. The sound drifted through the air and touched the surface of the pool. Ripples spread out in concentric circles, each one glowing faintly as it moved. The hum echoed once, twice, 3 times, each echo softer than the last, until it blended into the background music of the caverns. The pool calmed once more. "There," the Sandman said. "Now even your sigh has a place to rest." The child smiled, feeling oddly proud of their little contribution to this calm, echoing world. They turned back toward the train. They did not rush. There was no need. The sound of lullabies followed them like a warm shawl. When they stepped back onto the carriage, the humming of the caverns faded slowly, replaced again by the gentle hum of the train itself. The door slid closed. The engine began to move, golden rails carrying them back out into the open, star-filled space beyond. The child sank into their seat. Their limbs felt heavier now, in a pleasant way. Their eyes wanted to close, but they were also curious. "Are there more places?" they asked, voice thicker with sleep. "Oh yes," the Sandman answered quietly. "Quite a few. But tonight, just one more." "Where?" the child asked. "To the last stop," he said. "The one at the end of each night's journey. A place where dreams are warmed and smoothed before they're sent on their way." He lifted his lantern. The golden dust inside stirred as if waking. "It is called," he said, "the Golden Dream Furnace." Chapter 5, The Golden Dream Furnace. The train's hum shifted once more. The stars outside grew fewer, then gathered again, but this time not in scattered clusters. Ahead, the child saw a soft, golden glow spreading across the space like sunrise through fog. The rails rose gently, carrying the train up a slow incline. As they got closer, the child could see the source of the glow. It was a great, round shape hanging in the middle of the starry space, not quite a planet, not quite a sun. It looked more like a huge, floating workshop made of light and metal and warm stone, all fused together in smooth lines. Pipes and channels ran along its surface, each one glowing softly. Windows dotted its sides, amber and gold. From some of them, streams of slow-moving dust poured out and then dissolved into the darkness. The rails led directly into a wide archway on the side of this glowing structure. The train entered and slowed, its hum blending with a low, steady rumble that filled the air. The rumble was not harsh. It was deep and comforting, like the sound of a big cat purring, or a distant waterfall heard through a wall. The train came to rest on a platform inside. When the door opened, a wave of warm air greeted them. The warmth was not hot. It was like the warmth of a blanket that has been wrapped around you for a while. It smelled faintly of vanilla, baked bread, and something else that had no name but felt like safety. The Sandman stood and picked up his lantern. "Come," he said. "This is where I work." The child followed him out onto the platform. The space was wide and high. Overhead, the ceiling arched like the inside of a giant dome. From the center, a lantern bigger than a house hung, slowly turning, its core a swirling mass of golden dust. Around the edges of the chamber, there were work tables, benches, and gentle machines. Some rotated slowly, sorting tiny particles of light. Others pressed those particles together into larger, glowing shapes, then released them into channels that carried them away. Everywhere, small figures moved. They were like the conductor's spark from the train, but each one slightly different in size and brightness. Some were rounder, some a little taller. Some moved more quickly, others drifted slower. They bustled back and forth, carrying tiny bundles of light, pouring dust into funnels, adjusting the flow of golden currents. They did not speak, but every so often, when they bumped into each other, their lights pulsed in a pattern that felt a little like laughter. The child stared, wide-eyed. "What are they doing?" they asked. "They are tending the dreams," the Sandman said. "You might say this is a factory where dreams are warmed and shaped. During the day, thoughts and feelings and hopes arrive in little pieces. At night, we soften them, blend them, and send them out again as dreams." He pointed toward a wide trough along one wall. The child walked closer and looked in. Inside, a slow river of dull, gray dust flowed. It wasn't dark exactly, but it had no sparkle. It looked like tired thoughts, old feelings, worries that had been carried for too long. A small spark sipped over with a tiny scoop in its hands. It dipped the scoop into the gray flow, lifted a portion, and carried it over to a nearby basin. In the basin was golden light, warm and bright. The spark poured the gray dust into it. The mixture swirled. Where the gray and gold met, the dullness softened, broke apart, and began to glow. Slowly, the whole basin brightened, as if the heavy thoughts were being warmed and dissolved into something lighter. The Sandman watched along with the child. "This is how we keep your dreams from turning into storms," he said. "We cannot remove every weight, but we can give it warmth, soften its edges, and send it back as something your sleeping mind can handle. Sometimes, something beautiful even comes out of it." The child looked again. From the basin rose a small, glowing shape. It rotated once in the air, then twice. It became a cozy house with smoke curling from the chimney. Then it changed, turning into a garden, then into a path under trees, then into the sight of waves on a quiet shore. Then it broke into pieces, and each piece turned into a small shining drop that drifted upward and joined the giant lantern in the ceiling. "Some of those pieces will belong to you," the Sandman said. "Some will go to other sleepers. Dreams like to share." The child wandered slowly through the workshop. They saw a long table where small, pale lights were sorted by color and brightness. Some were warm yellows and oranges, memories of happy moments, of laughter, of ordinary days that had gone well. Others were blues and greens, feelings of calm, of stillness, of being near water or sky. A few were deeper colors, purples and soft reds, feelings of strong emotion that needed careful handling. Each was placed in a different vessel, bowls, jars, channels, so that when the night deepened, and sleepers' minds relaxed, the right combination could be sent along the rails of thought. "Do you do this every night?" the child asked. "Every night," the Sandman nodded. "It is a quiet kind of work, and there is always more to do." He walked over to a smaller station in one corner. There, on a low table, stood a bowl with a flickering light inside. It was not bright. It was restless. "This one is yours," he said softly. The child stepped closer. Inside the bowl, they saw flashes. The desk again. The paper with the difficult question. The feeling of not knowing. A small twist of embarrassment. A worry about what someone might say. Then, other pieces mixed in, someone's voice saying it's okay, a hand on their shoulder, the warmth of a blanket, the Memory Meadows, the Lullaby Caverns. All of it blended and shifted. "What will happen to it?" the child asked. "I will give it warmth," the Sandman said. "I will let it move around in a safe place. When you dream tonight, you may visit a gentle version of this. You might see yourself in a classroom that slowly turns into a meadow. You might read a question that turns into a cloud and drifts away. You might feel worry in your chest for a moment, and then feel a hand in yours. He lifted the bowl and tipped it carefully into a small funnel. The light inside swirled down into the system of channels. It will not disappear, he said. But it will change. That is what dreams are for. The child watched, feeling strangely relieved. For a moment, they had the sense that the heaviness they had carried into bed had been noticed, held, and gently taken somewhere far more capable of handling it. They turned to the Sandman. "Is this why I feel better after some dreams?" they asked. The Sandman nodded. "Sometimes," he said. "Not always. But often. Sleep is not just rest for the body. It is a quiet workshop for the mind. You bring us your raw thoughts. We send back softened shapes." He looked at the child with quiet kindness. "You do not have to do all the work alone." The warmth in the room began to feel heavier now, like the weight of a many-layered blanket. The child's eyes grew droopy. Their limbs felt almost as if they were made of sand themselves, softened and ready to settle. The Sandman placed a hand lightly on their shoulder. "It is time we take you home," he said. "The night is almost done, and your bed is waiting." Chapter 6, Return to the Quiet Room. They walked back to the train together. The conductor's sparks paused in their work to watch them go, their tiny lights pulsing in a slow farewell. The great lantern in the ceiling turned gently, shedding its golden light over the workshop, but even that light seemed to dim just a little, as if it too were getting ready for rest. When they stepped onto the platform and back into the carriage, the air changed. The warmth of the golden dream furnace gave way to the cooler, quieter air of the starry in-between. The door closed softly. The train's hum rose again, steady and sure. Outside, the rails led away from the glowing workshop, back into the wide darkness. The child curled up on the seat this time, pulling their knees up, tucking their feet under them. The conductor's spark settled near their collarbone, a tiny, comforting warmth. "Will I remember all of this?" the child asked, voice barely more than a breath. "Maybe," the Sandman said. "Maybe not clearly. It will be there, though, even if it feels like only a feeling you can't quite put into words." He sat opposite, lantern on the table. The dust inside swirled slowly, like snow in a globe that had been gently shaken. "You will remember that the night felt gentle," he added. "You will remember that something took care of your thoughts while you rested. That is enough." The child watched the window. Outside, the stars began to thin again. The darkness softened. Faint shapes of rooftops appeared, then the suggestion of trees, of streets, of familiar outlines. The train's hum grew quieter, not because it was stopping, but because it was moving into a place where sound had different rules. Soon, the golden rails led into a small, glowing tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, like the end of a straw, the child saw their own bedroom. The lamp still glowing softly. The bed. The pillow. The slightly open window. The train slowed and came to a gentle stop. The door opened. The platform of light unfolded again, reaching out into the room. The Sandman lifted his lantern. It glowed a little brighter, illuminating the doorway. "Time to go back," he said. The child stood, their body feeling heavy in the best way. Their head felt soft inside, as if their thoughts had been wrapped in cotton. They stepped out onto the glowing platform. It felt familiar now. Like stepping from an old story into a new one, knowing that both were part of the same book. Their feet touched the floor of their room. The platform slowly folded back. The child turned to look at the Sandman. He stood in the doorway of the train, lantern in hand, coat trailing, eyes kind. "Will you come again?" the child asked. "I come every night," he answered. "Sometimes on this train. Sometimes in a drifting speck of dust. sometimes in the way your eyes grow heavy while you read. But yes, I will be there. Are you going to help other people now? The child asked. The Sandman nodded. There are many minds to soothe, many worries to warm. But for tonight, he added, your share is done. He lifted the lantern slightly, in a gesture that was almost like a wave. Sleep now, he said. Let the dreams do their work. You have already done enough. The child felt a great yawn rising. They did not try to stop it. Their jaw opened wide, their eyes watered lightly, their shoulders relaxed. When they looked again, the rails along the wall were already fading. The engine, the carriages, the lanterns, the sparks, all were becoming softer, more transparent, like fog in the morning sun. The Sandman's shape blurred, his coat dissolving into wisps of gold and silver, his lantern's light shrinking to a single point, then to nothing at all. In another second, the wall was just the wall again. The room was just the room. Quiet. Soft. Familiar. The child turned. The bed waited. They climbed in, the sheets cool against their skin, the pillow cradling their head. They pulled the blanket up to their chin. The lamp's glow seemed a little gentler now, as if it too were growing sleepy. The child's eyes closed. Behind their eyelids, faint meadows of light drifted. Caverns hummed with soft, forgotten tunes. A warm workshop glowed in the distance, busy yet peaceful. In their chest, the knot of worry was no longer a knot. It was just a small shape floating in a warm pool, slowly dissolving, slowly turning into something else. Outside, the world continued in its quiet way. A car passed by, but the sound barely registered. A branch brushed the window, but it sounded like part of a dream. At the very edge of hearing, so faint that it might only be imagined, there was a sound. A low, steady hum. A distant engine. A train rolling along golden rails somewhere in the deep night. The Sandman's sleep train moved on, carrying other dreams, other thoughts, other sleepers. For this child, tonight, its work was done. Their breathing slowed. In. Out. In. Out. And sleep, gentle and deep, finally came, riding along the same soft rails the train had followed, straight into the heart of the night, where everything quiet had a place to rest. And there, wrapped in the safest kind of silence, the child slept.